Gemma Vance stepped into the glass elevator at Apex Tower and pressed the button for the 14th floor with a shaking finger. The lobby behind her looked like a magazine spread. Marble floors, cold light, men in tailored suits who did not glance at her twice, and women in sharp heels who glanced at her once and then looked away with polite little smiles that felt worse than being ignored. She caught her reflection in the mirrored panel. A plus-size woman in a navy blazer that had cost her 3 weeks of grocery money. Hair pulled back too tight. Lipstick a shade too bold. Because her sister had said, "Bold lips make you look confident, even when you are not." Gemma was not confident. Gemma was terrified. She had 13 floors to fix that. The doors slid shut with a soft hiss, and the elevator began its silent climb up the outside of the tower. Chicago spread below her in a grid of steel and glass, the lake glittering in the morning sun. She was alone. She was sure of it. She had watched the lobby, watched the doors close, and there had been no one else stepping in. So she started to talk. "Okay, Gemma," she whispered to her reflection. "You have got this. You have got this." She took a breath. She squared her shoulders. She tried to remember every line she had rehearsed in front of her bathroom mirror for the last 2 weeks. "Mr. Halverson, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Gemma Vance, and I have spent the last 4 years studying freight and supply chain vulnerabilities in the Midwest logistics market." Her voice picked up as she went. This was the part she knew. This was the part she was good at. Numbers, routes, pressure points. The rest of her life might be a mess of unreturned dating messages and clothes that never quite fit right. But this she owned. "Take Vanguard Logistics," she said, warming up, gesturing to no one. "Everybody in this city thinks Vanguard is untouchable. Everybody is wrong. They have 3 critical weak points, and if a competitor squeezed all 3 at once, the whole company would fold inside a quarter." The floors ticked by. 4, 5, 6. Weak point 1. Their rail contracts through the Gary Corridor are month to month, not annual. A rival with cash could offer the rail operators a 2-year lock at a slight premium and lock Vanguard out of half their eastbound freight overnight. 7, 8. Weak point 2. Their insurance underwriter is the same firm that flagged them last spring for repeated route deviations. One coordinated complaint filed with the proper documentation, and their premiums triple. Their whole margin evaporates. 9, 10. Weak point 3, and this is the one nobody talks about. Their fuel hedging is done by a single contractor out of Cleveland. That contractor has 2 other clients, both bigger than Vanguard. If somebody paid that contractor a very small consulting fee to prioritize the bigger clients during a shortage, Vanguard would be paying spot market prices for diesel inside a week. Game over. She smiled at her reflection. That felt good. That felt sharp. "Halverson is going to eat that up," she told herself. "Halverson is going to hire you on the spot. Halverson is a fool." The voice came from directly behind her. Gemma's stomach dropped through the floor of the elevator. She spun so fast her heel caught on the marble tile, and she had to grab the brass rail to keep from falling. He was there, right there, standing in the corner. She had somehow not checked, half hidden by the angled glass and the morning glare. A man about her age, 27 maybe, sleek black suit, no tie, dark hair combed back with a precision that suggested a barber, not a comb, and eyes that were watching her with an expression she could not read at all. "How long," she managed, "have you been standing there?" "Since the ground floor," he said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You did not look." Her face burned. Every muscle in her body wanted to sink through the floor. She had just recited a professional demolition of a billion-dollar freight company to a total stranger in an elevator. "I am so sorry," she said. "I was practicing. I have an interview." I did not mean to. I mean, please forget everything I just said. No, he said. She blinked. No, no, I will not forget it. He was still watching her. Weak point 3 is the strongest of the three. The fuel contractor. You are the first person I have ever heard name it out loud. The elevator chimed. Floor 14. The doors opened onto a beige reception area with a beige receptionist and a beige potted plant. Gemma did not move. Neither did the man. You should go to your interview, he said, and there was something in the corner of his mouth that might have been the ghost of a smile. Do not tell them what you told me. She stepped out in a daze. The doors closed behind her. 22 minutes later, Gemma was back in the same elevator, going down. The interview had lasted 6 of those 22 minutes. Mr. Halverson had looked at her once, checked his watch, and asked whether she had any actual client-facing experience, or just academic theories. When she started to answer, he interrupted to say the role really required somebody who could represent the brand at social functions. He had not said the word she thought he meant. He had not needed to. The 2 junior recruiters at the table had not looked her in the eye once. She had thanked them. She had walked out. She had not cried. She was proud of that. The elevator hit the lobby. The doors opened. Gemma stepped out and headed for the revolving door, and the cold Chicago wind that would carry her back to the bus stop, and her tiny apartment, and her sister's inevitable, "How did it go, sweetie?" She made it 4 steps. Ms. Vance. 2 men in dark uniforms were standing in front of her. Not police, not quite security guards either. Their earpieces were too small, and their shoes were too expensive. Ms. Vance, the older one said again, polite as a butler, would you come with us, please? The owner of the building would like a word. Gemma's mouth went dry. The owner, she repeated. Penthouse suite, the man said, and gestured toward a private elevator on the far side of the lobby that she had not even noticed on her way in. Its doors were already open, waiting. She looked at the 2 men. She looked at the private elevator. She thought about the stranger in the glass box who had heard every single word. Then Gemma Vance, who had nothing left to lose today, lifted her chin and walked toward the doors. The private elevator did not have buttons. It only had one destination. Gemma watched the numbers climb past 40, past 50, past 60. The 2 men in dark uniforms stood on either side of her and said nothing. She tried to think of something clever to say, and failed. She tried to remember whether her blazer had a coffee stain on the left cuff, and could not remember. Her heart was doing something complicated behind her ribs. The doors opened onto a room that did not look like an office. It looked like the top of the world. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around every side. The lake was one wall. Downtown Chicago was another. A long walnut desk sat in the center, bare except for a laptop and a single black folder. And behind the desk, standing with his hands in his pockets, was the man from the elevator. Ms. Vance, he said, please sit down. She sat. The chair was softer than her bed. My name is Cyrus Mercer, he said. I own Apex Tower. I also own the freight brokerage on the 22nd floor, the port consultancy on the 31st, and a handful of other businesses across 4 states. Mr. Halverson works for one of them. He does not work for me anymore, as of about 11 minutes ago. Gemma opened her mouth. She closed it again. You are not going to apologize for what you said in the elevator, Cyrus went on. You are going to say it again, slower this time, while I take notes. And then I am going to offer you a job that will pay you more in 1 month than Halverson would have paid you in a year. She found her voice. Why? Because you are the first person in 6 months who has correctly identified how somebody could dismantle Vanguard Logistics. And because somebody is currently trying to dismantle me the exact same way, and I need to stop them before they succeed. She stared at him. Vanguard is a threat to you? Vanguard is one name for the problem. There are others. Sit, talk. Let us find out if you are as good as you sounded when you thought you were alone. They talked for 3 hours. Cyrus asked questions the way a surgeon asked for instruments. Precise, clean. He did not interrupt her, and he did not check his watch, and he did not once look at any part of her body, except her eyes. When she stumbled over a number, he waited. When she pushed back on one of his assumptions, he wrote it down. By the end of the 3rd hour, there was a signed contract in front of her, a starting figure that made her hands shake, and a title she had never dared put on her own resume, Chief Logistics Analyst. There is one more thing, Cyrus said, closing the black folder. The work I do is not always simple. My father built this company from the ground up. Some of what he built was clean, some of it was not. I am spending every hour of every day pulling the not clean pieces out by the roots. That work makes people angry. Angry people do things. You need to know that before you sign. What kind of things? Gemma asked. The kind that require the 2 gentlemen who brought you up here, Cyrus said. Nothing that will touch you. Nothing that will ask you to do anything you would be ashamed of. But you should know. Gemma looked at the contract. She looked at the lake. She thought about the bus stop, and her sister, and Mr. Halverson checking his watch. She signed. The next afternoon she was on a jet. It was not a commercial jet. It did not have rows. It had cream leather seats and a low table and a woman in a crisp white shirt who brought Gemma a sparkling water without being asked. Cyrus sat across from her, sleeves rolled to the elbow, a tablet on the table between them. O'Hare to Detroit, he said. 90 minutes in the air. Long enough for you to earn your first month's salary. He turned the tablet so she could see. It was a live tracking map. Dozens of little green icons crawling along highways and rail lines across the Midwest. One of the icons was flashing red. This is a shipment of industrial cooling components, Cyrus said. $12 million of specialty freight. It left our warehouse in Gary at 4 this morning, bound for a manufacturing client in Cleveland. 2 hours ago, the driver stopped answering his phone. 1 hour ago, the truck left its assigned route. Gemma leaned forward. The red icon was moving north, well past its exit. Somebody hijacked it? Somebody rerouted it. There is a difference. A hijack is loud. This is quiet. Whoever is driving that truck now still has the original driver's credentials, still has the correct manifest, and is heading somewhere they believe we will not look. You want me to find where? I want you to find where before it gets there. Gemma pulled the tablet closer. She traced the red line back to where the truck had first deviated. She checked the timestamps. She checked the fuel stops. She asked for a second screen, and Cyrus slid one across without a word. She pulled up rail crossings, way stations, and every private freight yard within 150 miles of the deviation point. 18 minutes later, she tapped one location on the map. Here, she said. Not the big yard everybody would guess. This one. Small, private, 3 miles off the interstate. The truck already passed 2 closer yards, which means the driver knew those had cameras. This one is owned by a shell company, whose registered address is a mailbox store in Toledo. That is where they are taking it. Cyrus looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up a handset from the wall and spoke 3 sentences in a voice too quiet for her to catch. He set the handset down. My team will be in position in 40 minutes, he said. The truck will arrive in 50. He looked out the window at the clouds sliding past. Ms. Vance, he said. Welcome to Mercer Enterprise. The armored SUV rolled through the outskirts of Detroit just after 10 at night. Gemma sat in the back seat next to Cyrus, watching the city give way to warehouses and empty lots and long stretches of chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Streetlights blinked. Half of them did not work. The other half painted everything the color of weak tea. 2 minutes out, the driver said. Cyrus was on his phone, reading something. He had not spoken much since the jet landed. Gemma had learned quickly that his silences were not cold. They were working silences. He was thinking. And when he was thinking, he let the world wait. She looked at her own tablet. The private freight yard she had flagged on the plane was a green blip in the middle of a black grid. The hijacked truck was a red blip half a mile out and closing. "They are early," she said. "They are nervous," Cyrus said, not looking up. "Nervous men speed." The SUV turned down a service road and pulled to a stop behind a low concrete building. 2 other vehicles were already there, dark and silent. Men in plain jackets moved between them with the unhurried pace of people who had done this before. Cyrus finally put his phone away. "Ms. Vance, you stay in the vehicle. You watch the tablet. You tell me if anything changes on the map. Do not get out for any reason. Are we clear?" "Clear." "Good." He opened the door and stepped out into the cold. Gemma watched him cross the lot to a man she did not recognize, an older man with a shaved head and a heavy coat. They spoke for maybe 30 seconds. Then the older man handed Cyrus a folder. Cyrus flipped it open, read 1 page, and nodded once. That was all. No shouting. No weapons that Gemma could see. Just paper. She had expected something else. She was not sure what. Her whole life she had watched movies where nights like this ended with broken glass and running footsteps. This felt more like a very tense real estate closing. The red blip on her tablet turned into the yard. "Truck is in," she said into the small earpiece Cyrus had handed her before he stepped out. "Copy," his voice came back. Calm. Quiet. Across the lot, Gemma saw the freight truck roll through the open gate and come to a stop next to a loading bay. The driver climbed down. He was a heavy man in a stained jacket. He looked around and pulled out a phone. Then the yard's floodlights came on all at once. The driver froze. 2 more men came out of the loading bay, saw the light, and froze with him. A 4th man appeared from behind the truck with a phone to his ear, saying something urgent. Cyrus stepped into the light with the older man beside him. He was holding the folder. Gemma turned up the audio on her earpiece. "Gentlemen," Cyrus said, and his voice carried across the lot without him raising it at all. "That truck is not yours. The yard you are standing in is not yours either. I have papers here that say the rail spur behind you was locked out at 9:47 this evening by court order. I have another paper that says every gate on this property was placed under an emergency injunction at 9:51. The trucks you were planning to move the cargo into? Grounded. Insurance revoked. Their plates are being pulled by the state as we speak. Nobody moved. You have 2 choices," Cyrus said. "Choice 1. You leave. You leave the truck. You leave the manifest. You leave the keys. You walk to the front gate, which is the only gate still legally open, and you get in your own vehicles, and you drive away. Nobody stops you. Nobody follows you. Choice 2. You stay, and my lawyers file the theft paperwork that is currently sitting in a car 3 blocks from here, and you spend the next 4 years explaining to a judge how a $12 million shipment ended up in a yard rented by a mailbox in Toledo." The man with the phone lowered it slowly. "Who are you?" he said. "You know who I am." There was a long, ugly silence. Gemma held her breath. The driver moved first. He turned, walked away from the truck without a word, and headed for the front gate. After a second, the 2 men from the loading bay followed him. The man with the phone was the last to move. He stared at Cyrus for a long moment, spat once on the concrete, and then walked after the others. They were out of the yard in under 4 minutes. Cyrus watched them go. Then he turned to the older man beside him and said something Gemma could not hear. The older man laughed, clapped him once on the shoulder, and walked toward the truck to check the cargo. Cyrus came back to the SUV. He slid into the seat next to Gemma and closed the door. He smelled like cold air and something faintly like cedar. For a moment, he just sat there with his eyes closed. "That was it," Gemma said. "That was it. No fight." "There is almost never a fight," he said, opening his eyes. "Fights are what happen when somebody has run out of paperwork. I keep a great deal of paperwork." Gemma laughed before she could stop herself. It came out a little shaky. Cyrus turned to look at her properly for the first time since they had landed. "You did that," he said. "You put me in that yard tonight. If you had picked the wrong spot on the map, that shipment would be in 3 different countries by morning, and my client would be suing me for the full replacement cost. Instead, the cargo is on its way to Cleveland, and my rivals are learning that I know how to close doors on them. All because a woman I met in an elevator counted fuel stops faster than my entire logistics team. She did not know what to say. She had spent so many years being told her mind was a nice hobby, but not a real skill. Hearing it named out loud, plainly, by a man who had just moved $12 million with a folder, felt like standing in sunlight after a long winter. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you, Miss Vance." The SUV pulled out of the lot and turned back toward the highway. The lake house did not look like a safe house. It looked like the kind of home Gemma used to see in magazines at the dentist's office, and then quietly close before anyone caught her looking. Long, low windows facing the water, cedar walls, a wide stone chimney, a dock reaching out into a lake so still it held the trees upside down. They arrived on the 5th day, a little after 5 in the evening. The drive up from Chicago had taken most of the afternoon. Gemma had spent the last hour of it watching the pines get taller and the traffic get thinner, and trying to shake the feeling that she had wandered into somebody else's life. The older man from the depot, the one with the shaved head, met them at the door. His name was Bram. He ran what Cyrus called the quiet side of operations. He had a smile that surprised her every time she saw it, because it made him look about 12 years old. "Miss Vance," Bram said, taking her small suitcase. "Corner room upstairs. Best view in the house." Cyrus insisted. She glanced at Cyrus. He was already halfway down the hall, phone against his ear. 6 other people were staying at the lake house. 3 analysts. A cybersecurity lead named Priya, a lawyer named Devon, who wore a hoodie over his shirt and tie, and Bram. They ate together at a long wooden table in the kitchen. Bram cooked. He cooked well. He made pot roast the first night, and a lemon chicken the second, and a pan of lasagna on the third, that Devon claimed had once brought him to tears. Nobody said a word about the size of Gemma's plate. She had not realized how much she had been bracing for that until it did not come. At her last job, the office kitchen had felt like a courtroom every lunch hour. Somebody was always watching. Somebody always had a comment ready, dressed up as a joke or a compliment or advice she had not asked for. Here, Bram just kept refilling the serving bowl and asking whether she had tried the rosemary bread. The work never stopped. Between meals, they mapped rival supply chains, traced shell companies, and drew up scenarios for a hostile move on the port of Newark that Cyrus was quietly trying to acquire. Gemma ran the numbers, Priya ran the servers, Devon ran the paperwork. Cyrus moved between them all, asking short questions and giving shorter instructions, and somehow every thread ran through him without ever seeming to tangle. On the second night at the lake, Gemma stayed up past everyone else. She was working through a spreadsheet on the screened porch. Wrapped in a blanket Bram had draped over her shoulders without comment. Cyrus came out with 2 mugs of tea. He set one down next to her elbow. "You do not have to keep working," he said. "The deadline is Monday. You have 3 days. I am close. I want to finish while it is fresh." He sat down in the chair across from her. He did not open a laptop. He did not look at his phone. He just watched the lake for a while. "Can I ask you something?" Gemma said, without looking up from her screen. "Yes." "Why me? Really? You have Priya, you have Devon, you have Bram, you have people who have been with you for years, and then you find a stranger in an elevator and you put her at your table 3 days later. Why?" He was quiet for a moment. "My father built this company when he was 22, he said. He was a smart man. He was also a man who took shortcuts. Some of those shortcuts made us rich. Some of them made us the kind of family that has to keep a place like this off the main road. When he died 4 years ago, he left me a business with 2 halves, a clean half and a dirty half. The dirty half is old, and it has roots, and the men who worked in it do not want to lose their pensions. Every month I cut another root. Every month somebody I have known since years stops speaking to me. That is the work, the real work." He picked up his tea. "Priya, Devon, Bram, they knew my father. They are loyal, but they carry his voice in their heads. They flinch at the same things he flinched at. You do not know any of that. You looked at Vanguard and you saw the answer clean, with no ghosts in the way. I needed somebody without ghosts, and you happened to be talking to yourself in my elevator." Gemma closed the laptop. She had not planned to. It just felt wrong to keep typing. "My father used to say I would grow out of it," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "The math, the reading. He wanted a daughter who could dance, and he got one who liked spreadsheets. He was not unkind about it. He was just disappointed. In a quiet way, every day. He was wrong. I know. Do you?" She looked up. Cyrus was watching her. Not the way men usually watched her. Not measuring, not judging, not politely looking anywhere else. Just watching. The way you watched someone you were listening to. "I am starting to," she said. He nodded once. He drank his tea. The lake kept holding the trees upside down. "I am going to make this company completely legitimate," he said, after a while. "Every dock, every truck, every dollar. That was the promise I made at my father's funeral. I am closer than I have ever been. I would like your help finishing it. You have it. Just like that. Just like that." He set down his mug. He did not smile exactly, but something in his face loosened for the first time since she had met him. "Get some sleep, Miss Vance. Monday is going to be a long day." She did. She slept better than she had in years. The dress was the color of deep wine, and it fit her. That was the part Gemma could not stop thinking about as the town car pulled up to the Manhattan ballroom on the 8th night. It fit her. Not the way clothes usually fit her, which was to say, almost but not quite, tugging at the shoulder or gaping at the waist or riding up when she sat. This dress had been cut for her body by a woman named Ines, who had spent 2 hours at the lake house with a measuring tape and a mouthful of pins, and had not once made a face. Cyrus had arranged it. He had done it the same way he arranged everything, quietly, without ceremony. A garment bag had appeared in her closet on the 6th morning, and when she had tried to thank him at breakfast, he had only said, "You are representing the firm. Wear whatever makes you feel like yourself." She stepped out of the car onto a red carpet, and for the first time in her adult life, she did not want to disappear. The ballroom was the kind of place that had chandeliers older than her grandmother. Waiters slid between clusters of guests, carrying trays of champagne. Cyrus was already inside, standing near the far windows with a small circle of men in dark suits. He saw her come in. He excused himself from the circle and crossed the floor to meet her. "Miss Vance. Mr. Mercer. Ready. Not remotely. Good. Overconfident people miss things." He offered his arm. She took it. The next hour was a blur of names and handshakes. Port authority people, shipping executives, a woman who ran freight insurance for half the eastern seaboard. Cyrus introduced Gemma as his senior advisor every single time. Not his analyst, not his assistant, his senior advisor. She watched people adjust their assumptions in real time, and she liked it more than she wanted to admit. The deal on the table was a 15-year concession at the Newark port. Cyrus had been positioning for it for 2 years. Tonight was the last night of soft handshakes before the paperwork went hard on Monday morning. She was standing near a tall arrangement of white flowers, waiting for Cyrus to finish a conversation, when the man came up beside her. "Miss Vance, is it?" He was a broad man in his 50s, silver at the temples, with the practiced smile of somebody who had learned early that his teeth were his best feature. His lapel pin was a small brass anchor. "Vanguard, that is right. Sterling Cade, Executive Vice President over at Vanguard Logistics. I have been hearing quite a lot about you this week. That is flattering. Is it?" He took a sip of his drink. His eyes traveled once, quickly, from her shoes to her hair, and back again. "Tell me, how did a girl like you end up running numbers for Cyrus Mercer? Family friend? Old school connection? Neither. Then how?" "He hired me because I am good at my job." "Of course he did." Sterling smiled wider. "I am sure that is exactly why he hired you. And I am sure the dress was your idea too. Very brave. Not everyone could carry that off. Truly." The blood in Gemma's face went hot and then cold. She had heard this exact voice her entire life, wearing 100 different faces. The voice that dressed cruelty up as concern. The voice that put a knife in your ribs and then handed you a compliment on the way out. For a moment, she was 14 years old again, at her cousin's wedding, standing near a table of appetizers, listening to an aunt say what a shame it was, because she had such a pretty face. Then a hand settled lightly on the small of her back. "Sterling," Cyrus said. His voice was easy, almost warm. "I did not know you were on the guest list tonight. Cyrus, wonderful event." "It is. I see you have met Miss Vance. We were just getting acquainted." "Then let me finish the introduction properly." Cyrus turned so he was facing Sterling head-on, and Gemma felt the whole shape of the room shift around them. Nearby conversations went quieter. A waiter paused. "This is Gemma Vance. She joined my firm 8 days ago. In those 8 days, she has recovered a $12 million shipment your associates were trying to reroute through a mailbox in Toledo, identified 3 separate weak points in your parent company's operating structure that I have already begun pressing on, and drafted the analytical spine of the bid you are going to lose on Monday morning. She is, without exaggeration, the most valuable mind in this room tonight, including mine." Sterling's smile did not move. His eyes did. "That is quite an endorsement. It is quite an accurate one." Cyrus tilted his head slightly. "Sterling, a word of advice. The next time you find yourself standing next to one of my people at an event like this, ask them about their work. It is the only part of them that concerns you. Everything else is above your station." The silence that followed was very short and very loud. Sterling recovered. Men like him always recovered. He gave a small, tight nod, murmured something about the shrimp, and walked away. Gemma realized she had been holding her breath. She let it out slowly. "You did not have to do that." "I did," Cyrus said. "He was rude to a member of my firm. In front of witnesses, silence would have been permission. Still, Miss Vance." He looked at her. "You are going to hear a version of what he said for the rest of your career. From better-dressed men and worse-dressed men and everyone in between. I cannot answer all of them for you, but I can answer the ones who try it in front of me." She nodded. She could not quite trust her voice. Cyrus offered his arm again. "Come on," he said. "There is a woman from the Port Authority I want you to meet. She reads spreadsheets for pleasure. You will like her." Gemma laughed, small and surprised. and let him lead her back into the room. The first alarm went off at 3:47 in the morning. Gemma was still in her wine-colored dress, curled sideways in a chair in the suite's living room, laptop balanced on her knees. She had come back from the gala too wired to sleep, and had told herself she would look over one report before bed. 2 hours had gone by. Her hair had come down. Her shoes were somewhere near the couch. Her phone buzzed once, then again. Then it did not stop. She grabbed it. A single line from Priya. "Get to the war room, now." The war room was a suite 2 floors down that Cyrus had rented for the week and stripped of everything decorative. When Gemma pushed the door open, all 6 screens on the far wall were lit up in red. Priya was at the head of the table in sweatpants and a Mercer Enterprise hoodie, hair in a knot, 3 laptops open in front of her. Devon was on the phone in the corner. 2 of the analysts from the lake house were already there. Bram was making coffee. Cyrus stood behind Priya's shoulder in a plain black shirt with the collar open. He looked like he had not been to bed at all. "Talk to me," he said. "Someone is inside our mainframe," Priya said. "They came in through a maintenance back door about 40 minutes ago. They are not stealing. They are wiping. Financial records, contract data, bid documents, everything we need for Monday. How much have we lost? Nothing yet. They are moving carefully. They know we will notice if they go too fast. Right now they are inside the acquisition folder. If they reach the escrow authorizations, they can freeze our ability to close on the port. No money moves, no port, no deal." Cyrus turned his head. Gemma. She was already at a laptop. "Give me the intrusion signature," she said. Priya slid a screen across the table. A wall of code filled it. Gemma leaned in. She had spent half a day the previous week reading through Vanguard's internal software patents, back when she had been mapping their weak points from the elevator up. There had been a very specific style to the way their systems handled authentication. A kind of double handshake, older than most, that most modern firms had abandoned. She had teased Priya about it that afternoon. She scrolled through the intrusion code now, line by line. There it was, halfway down, the same double handshake, repurposed, wearing a different jacket. "It is them," she said. "It is Vanguard, same signature I flagged in your elevator on day 1, same fingerprint. They rewrote the outer layer, but the guts are identical." Cyrus went very still. "You are sure? I would put my job on it. That is not what I asked." She looked up at him. "I am sure." "Good." He straightened. "Priya, options." 2, Priya said. 1. We shut the mainframe down. Cut the connection at the physical switch. That stops the wipe, but it also freezes every legitimate transaction for the next 18 hours. Which means we miss the Monday closing window and lose the port anyway. 2. We let them keep going and try to trap them in real time. If we can build a wall around them fast enough, we corner them inside a fake folder. They think they are wiping our records. They are actually wiping a decoy. Meanwhile, we trace the connection all the way back to their server. How fast is fast enough? Very. Cyrus looked at Gemma. "You built the fuel hedging analysis in 90 minutes on a plane," he said. "Can you build the decoy folder in 2 hours? Not alone. You are not alone." She looked at Priya. Priya nodded once. Then yes. They worked without stopping. Priya handled the walls. Gemma handled the bait. She used everything she had learned about Vanguard's internal culture from a month of reading their public filings. She built a folder that looked exactly like the kind of thing a Vanguard analyst would expect a Mercer analyst to hide. She filled it with plausible-looking bid numbers, near-real client names, a schedule of escrow releases that was almost right and completely fake. She made the numbers just slightly too good, the way a proud rival firm would leave them, so that whoever was reading on the other end would smile and keep reading and not stop to check. Bram brought her a mug of coffee at some point. She did not remember drinking it. She looked up once, and Cyrus was standing across the table, watching her hands move across the keyboard the way a coach watches a runner in the last stretch of a race. At 5:51, Priya said, "Wall is up. Bait is live." They just crossed into it. Nobody breathed. The intruder took the bait. Every keystroke on the far side lit up on Priya's middle screen. They moved through the fake escrow folder. They deleted the decoy documents one by one, careful and slow, thinking they were killing the deal. Priya's trace ran alongside them, hop by hop, server by server. It bounced through 3 shell relays and then finally landed on an address in a data center outside Cleveland, registered to a subsidiary of Vanguard Logistics. Priya took a screenshot, then another. Then she saved every log to 3 separate drives and sent copies to Devon's encrypted inbox. "Got them," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "We have their server. We have the timestamps. We have the fingerprint. If a lawyer cannot hang them with this, no lawyer can." Devon was already dialing. Cyrus put both hands on the back of Priya's chair for a moment. Then he walked around the table to where Gemma was sitting. "2 weeks ago, you were practicing a pitch in an elevator," he said quietly. "This morning, you saved a port. Go get some sleep, Ms. Vance. We are not done with them yet." She went. She did not remember taking off the dress. The port of Newark, at midnight, was a city of its own. Cranes stood tall against a low orange sky, their long arms folded like sleeping birds. Rows of stacked containers made corridors that ran for a mile in every direction. Somewhere out on the water, a foghorn sounded, deep and slow. Gemma had never been anywhere that felt so big and so empty at the same time. The operations tower rose up in the middle of it all, 8 stories of glass and steel with a wide command room on top, ringed by monitors that showed every crane, every gate, every container in the yard. Cyrus and Gemma took the freight elevator up with Devon and Bram. Priya had stayed back in Manhattan, running the digital side from the war room. Monday morning closing was 7 hours away. Tonight was the walkthrough. The Port Authority had asked Cyrus to inspect the systems he was about to inherit, along with the outgoing operator, a heavy Danish man named Voss, who had run this facility for 11 years and did not seem sorry to be leaving. They were at the console, reviewing crane schedules when the elevator chimed behind them. Voss frowned. "I did not order coffee." The doors opened. 6 men stepped out. Sterling Cade was in front, still silver at the temples, no longer smiling. Behind him were 5 others, in dark coats. 2 of them Gemma recognized from the depot in Detroit. The rest she did not know, and did not want to. "Cyrus," Sterling said. "A word." Bram moved half a step forward. Cyrus lifted one hand without turning, and Bram stopped. "Sterling, it is very late." "It is. And in about 6 hours it is going to get much later for you." Sterling walked into the middle of the command room, hands in his coat pockets, taking his time. "You are going to walk away from this port tonight. You are going to fax a withdrawal of your bid to the authority before 6 a.m. You are going to publicly cite an internal review and a change of strategic direction. Do that, and we all go home. And if I do not, then in 90 seconds, my associate at that console over there is going to override the grid. Every crane in this yard freezes. Every gate locks. Every ship in the queue backs up into the harbor. By sunrise, the news will be running footage of a paralyzed port on the day of your acquisition closing. Your investors will scatter, your financing will collapse. You will not just lose this deal, you will lose the next 3. And I will still be standing here on Tuesday morning selling the story that you were never ready for a facility of this size." Voss went pale. Gemma looked at the console Sterling had pointed at. One of the dark-coated men was already moving toward it, a small, flat device in his hand. She did the math in her head. If they crashed the grid, Cyrus's Monday closing was dead. Even if the sabotage was reversed inside an hour, the story would be out. Sterling was right about that part. She looked at the other consoles. There were 4 of them arranged around the room. Crane control, gate control, rail control, master lockdown. Each one keyed to a physical badge reader. Voss had used his badge twice since they had come up. Once at the crane console, once at the gate console. Gemma had watched him both times. She had also watched him leave the badge sitting on the crane console when he had walked over to shake Cyrus's hand 10 minutes ago. She moved. She did not run. Running would get her stopped. She walked across the room the way a woman walks who is looking for a bathroom or a phone. She passed the crane console. Her hand closed on the badge without slowing. She kept going until she reached the master lockdown console at the far wall. Sterling was still talking. "Cyrus, I am giving you a professional courtesy here. You are a smart man. Take the exit." Gemma tapped the badge. The console lit up green. She was not a port operator. She had never touched a system like this in her life, but she had spent 6 hours the night before reading its manual on the plane down. Because that was what she did. She read manuals. And because Cyrus had told her the walkthrough would go faster if at least one person on their side understood the software. She found the emergency lockdown menu on the second tap. She found the gate seal command on the third. She hit it. Somewhere below them, a low mechanical rumble started up. Every perimeter gate in the port groaned shut on hydraulic hinges. The elevator doors on the far side of the room chimed once and then went dark as their power was cut. The command room lights flickered and came back on red. Sterling turned. "What did you do?" "I sealed the facility," Gemma said. Her voice was steadier than she expected. "Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. The elevators are down. The stairwells are locked at the ground floor. The nearest way out of this tower for you is a phone call to port security, who are already on their way up because the lockdown pings them automatically. You are going to be here for a while, Mr. Cade. All of you, together, in the same room, with witnesses." Sterling stared at her. "You cannot hold us. I am not holding you. The building is." She set the badge back on the console. "You walked into an active operations center in the middle of the night and threatened to sabotage federal port infrastructure. That is a conversation you get to have with the authorities. Not with us." Sterling's man at the other console lifted his flat device. Bram was there before he finished the motion, one hand on the man's wrist, the other taking the device. He did it without a word. Cyrus had not moved the entire time. He was looking at Gemma. "Miss Vance, Mr. Mercer, that was very good." Downstairs, sirens were already coming through the yard. The law firm sat on the 42nd floor of a tower in the financial district, and it smelled like old paper and fresh coffee. 2 mornings had passed since the Newark Tower. Gemma had slept for 11 hours the first night and 8 the second, and she still felt like her bones were made of wet sand. She walked in beside Cyrus at 9 on the dot. Devon was already there, hoodie replaced by a charcoal suit that made him look like a different person. 2 other attorneys sat with him at the long glass table, folders stacked in front of them in 3 neat towers. The other side of the table was already full. Vanguard's board of directors had flown in overnight. 7 of them, 4 men, 3 women, all in the kind of suits that cost more than Gemma's first car. Sterling Cade was not among them. Sterling Cade was, according to Devon, currently answering questions in a federal building across the river and would be answering them for some time. The chairman of Vanguard's board was a thin woman in her 60s named Adele Marchetti. She had steel gray hair cut short and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She did not stand when Cyrus walked in. She did not offer her hand. Mr. Mercer. Ms. Marchetti. Let us not waste each other's morning. Agreed. Devon slid the first folder across the table. It landed in front of Adele with a soft, heavy thud. She opened it. She read the top sheet. She turned to the second. She did not change expression, but the man on her left, an older man with a very red face, went a shade redder. This is the intrusion log, Devon said. Time-stamped, signed and traced to a server registered to your Ohio subsidiary. The forensic report is in the second tab. The third tab contains sworn statements from 3 members of my client's cybersecurity team, along with a preserved copy of the malicious code, which our expert has already matched to 2 previous incidents your firm was investigated for and cleared of. That clearance is going to be revisited. Adele turned another page. Devon slid the second folder across. This is the Newark incident. Building security footage. Elevator badge logs. A recording of Mr. Cade's statement to my client from the tower's own audio system, which was live for the entire encounter, because the operations center records everything by federal requirement. Mr. Cade's own attorneys have already conceded the tape's authenticity. The third folder followed. This is the Toledo Depot. Manifest fraud. 2 of the men present that night have signed cooperation agreements in the last 36 hours. They have named 11 Vanguard employees, 4 of them at director level, in a scheme going back 3 years. Adele closed the folder. She took off her reading glasses. She let them fall to her chest on their chain. What do you want, Mr. Mercer? A clean end, Cyrus said. For all of us. I am not interested in a 5-year court fight. I am not interested in your pension holders losing their retirements over what a handful of your executives decided to do without telling them. And I am not interested in the news cycle that follows a public trial. What I am interested in is a company that does not exist as a threat to mine, a legacy that does not carry my father's ghost anymore, and a workforce that gets to keep working. Specifics. Devon slid the 4th folder across. This one was thicker than the others. Full buyout at fair market value, he said. My client acquires Vanguard Logistics in its entirety. The board is dissolved. The 4 director-level names in the Toledo cooperation agreements are terminated for cause with no severance and referred to prosecutors. The remaining directors, including the 7 of you at this table, receive standard exit packages and signed non-disclosure agreements. The syndicate wing of your operation, which we both know exists on paper as 3 separate freight subsidiaries out of Cleveland, Gary, and Toledo, is shut down inside 60 days. The employees of those subsidiaries are offered transfers into legitimate roles within Mercer Enterprise where positions exist. Pension obligations are honored in full. Adele read the summary page. She read the numbers. She read them again. She looked up at Cyrus. The valuation is fair. It is more than fair. You know it is. Yes. She set the folder down. I know it is. The red-faced man on her left leaned in and murmured something urgent. Adele did not look at him. She kept her eyes on Cyrus. Your father and I did business twice, she said. A very long time ago. He was not a kind man. No, he was not. You are not him. I am trying not to be. Adele nodded once, slowly. Then she picked up the pen Devon had placed at her elbow and signed the summary page. The other 6 directors signed after her. It took less than 4 minutes. Nobody spoke. The red-faced man's hand was shaking when he set the pen down. When it was over, Adele stood. She walked around the table. She stopped in front of Gemma. You are the analyst. Yes. You are the one who mapped my company's weak points in an elevator. Yes. Adele looked at her for a long moment. Then she gave a small, tight, almost invisible smile. Come work for me sometime. I could double whatever he is paying you. Ms. Marchetti, in about 10 minutes, you are not going to have a company. The smile flickered wider, for half a second, before it disappeared entirely. Adele nodded to her and walked out. The rest of the board followed her. Devon exhaled. He sank back into his chair. He looked 10 years younger. Cyrus put a hand flat on the stack of folders and closed his eyes. 4 years, he said quietly. 4 years of pulling at this. It is done. It is done, Gemma said. He opened his eyes. He looked at her. Come home, he said. There is one more thing I want to show you. Chicago was cold and bright on the 15th afternoon. Gemma stood on the sidewalk outside Apex Tower and tilted her head back to look up at it. 58 floors of glass climbing into a hard blue sky. 2 weeks ago she had stood on this exact square of pavement in a blazer that did not fit and shoes that hurt, trying to remember how to breathe. The building had looked like a wall then, a thing meant to keep her out. Today the doorman held the door for her and said, "Welcome back, Miss Vance." She rode the private elevator up alone. It still did not have buttons. It still only went to one place. The doors slid open on the top floor, and Cyrus was waiting for her at the far end of the corridor, hands in his pockets, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbow the way she had first seen him on the plane. "You are late," he said. "I am 4 minutes early. By my clock, you are late. Then your clock is wrong." He almost smiled. He turned and started walking, and she fell into step beside him. They passed the door to his own office. They passed the conference room, where she had signed her first contract. He stopped in front of a set of double doors at the corner of the building she had never noticed before. "Close your eyes." "No, Miss Vance. Mr. Mercer, if you have thrown a party in there, I am going to walk directly back to that elevator." "There is no party." "Fine." She closed her eyes. She heard the doors open. She heard him step through. She felt his hand at her elbow, light, guiding her forward 2 steps. Open. She opened her eyes. The office took up the entire corner of the top floor. 2 full walls of glass. Lake on one side, downtown on the other. A wide, pale desk sat angled toward the corner so that whoever worked at it would see both views at once. A long, low bookshelf ran along the inner wall, already half full. A pair of deep armchairs faced the windows, and on the desk, centered, was a small nameplate in brushed steel. Gemma Vance, Senior Partner, Co-Director of Global Operations. She did not move for a long time. Cyrus. "There is a contract on the desk." Cyrus. "Read it before you say anything." She walked to the desk. She picked up the folder next to the nameplate. She opened it. The top page listed a base salary that made her sit down in the leather chair without meaning to. The second page listed equity. The third page listed a 5-year term with a mutual renewal clause. The fourth page listed benefits she did not know existed. The fifth page was a personal security detail, optional, at her discretion, funded by the firm. She looked up. Cyrus was standing on the other side of the desk, with his hands back in his pockets. "You do not have to sign it today," he said. "You do not have to sign it at all. If you would rather go back to being chief logistics analyst on your original contract, that is yours to keep. If you would rather take Adele Marchetti up on whatever she was going to offer you, I will write you a reference on the way out. This is not a test. This is an offer." Why senior partner? Because in 15 days you have done the work of a senior partner. Because the last 2 weeks of this company do not exist without you. Because I do not want to run this firm without you at the table. And the title is the honest name for what you are already doing. And co-director. Because I want a partner, not a subordinate. I have had subordinates. The good ones flinch. The bad ones agree. Neither of them is what this company needs to become what I promised my father it would become. I need somebody who will tell me when I am wrong. You have done that 4 times in 2 weeks. That is a rate I would like to keep. She turned the 5th page. She turned to the signature line. There is one thing I want to say before I sign. Say it. She looked at him, really looked, at the corner of his mouth that never quite smiled all the way, at the tired lines under his eyes that had been there the first morning and were fainter now, at the man who had watched her mind before he had ever really looked at her face, and who had never once, in 15 days, looked at her face the way men usually did. When I walked into that elevator 2 weeks ago, she said, I had spent so long being told my mind was a nice hobby that I almost believed it. I was going to that interview to be told no by a man who was going to look past me the whole time, and I was ready for it. I had built a whole life around being ready for it. I know. You did not fix that. No. You just made room for me to fix it myself. He was quiet. That is worth more than the salary, she said. I want you to know that. I do. She picked up the pen. She signed. Her signature came out steadier than it had on the first contract. She set the pen down and looked out at the lake, at the long blue afternoon light coming across the water, at the city she had ridden a bus through 2 weeks ago, wondering how she was going to make rent. Ms. Vance, Mr. Mercer, welcome to Mercer Enterprise. Properly this time. Thank you. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the frame. There is a logistics problem in Rotterdam. I would like your eyes on tomorrow morning. Can you be on a plane at 6? Yes, good. He left. The door closed softly behind him. Gemma sat alone in her corner office for a long time, watching the lake hold the sky upside down, and for the first time in her whole life, she did not feel like she was in somebody else's chair.